Hey, this is Chris Liepe. Welcome to my channel. We work on singing, we work on guitar, we work on recording, all in the context of helping you find your musical voice. In this lesson, I'm going to show you how to get a great sound when you're recording vocals. So many people, and I did this for really years, they get a nice mic, they get their room all fixed up to where they think it sounds pretty good, and then they start recording their voice, and they're like, oh, it just doesn't sound good no matter what. Well, I have dialed in a pretty fail-safe way to get great sounding vocals, even if you don't have that nice of a mic, and even if you don't have a bunch of extra rat gear, or, you can do it with free plugins inside of a DAW, or with, little purchases here and there that aren't too expensive that help you dial in that sound. And if you want to take this stuff further, be sure to join my free recording course by following the link below. Okay, so how do we dial in the sound of vocals? Well, you can hear right now what I'm talking through. I'm talking through this Mojave Audio mic, which is a fairly nice mic, and I don't have anything on it. I'm not going through any EQ. I'm not going through any compression. And most of the time, when people start recording, they just plug their mic into their preamp and they go. So let's do that. All right, so then we get this. The levels are all over the place. You solo it, and it's like, man. When you call, I can't help but run. Now that's, I don't know if it's necessarily distorted, but it doesn't sound all that good. And these are so quiet, and this is quiet, and even if we blow up the waveform, that all over the place. It just doesn't sound that good, right? This is, and if you listen to it in context, this stands out way too much. I mean, if you've ever tried to record vocals, you've gone into this. Okay, well, let's add some compression. We'll just add some basic compression here. Dynamics, compressor, and we'll go for something simple here. When you call, and we'll crank the threshold down. When you call, I can't help but run. That actually sounds a lot better, right? When you call, I can't help but run. But, so I'll bring this back a little bit and try to get it to sit in the mix. When you call, I can't help but run. So that's almost there, but then you're running this plugin kind of full bore, and it still isn't popping. So let's add some EQ. We'll just add some basic EQ. I'll brighten it up a little, and we'll roll the lows off, because we don't need that anyway. When you call, I can't help but run. When you call, I can't help but run. Okay, that sounds better, for sure, and it might even be workable, but it's not as cool as it could be, and it's not, it doesn't give you quite the efficiency or the editing ability that maybe you would want ideally. First of all, I hate looking at waveforms like this. Like, I realize that the sound of the voice is dynamic. The U is going to be a lot quieter than run, right? I mean, that's just the way it's going to be. But, even with the compression, the natural inclination is like, okay, well, let's go through and automate this, down here and this up, and And you end up drawing a bunch of things in there to try to make it stand out the way you want it to. When you call, I can't help but run. And when you call, I can't help but run. That kind of stuff is done, and it's a good thing to do, but I think people jump on that even too prematurely. So, what is the way to start with a better sound so that the compression and EQ we use afterward are less? We're going to hit more things less rather than relying on compression and EQ, all of it after the fact. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to set up an aux track, and we're going to record through the aux track and route that to an audio track, and we're going to put some compression and a little bit of EQ on the aux track. So we're actually recording these compression and EQ effects to the file as we're recording. That's going to help us interact with the mic better as we're singing, and it's going to mean that we get a better looking file, a less, thing that's doing this. The waveforms are big and the waveforms are small. It's going to give us a more consistent looking file, better for editing, and then we're going to kiss it after on the track real time with some additional compression and EQ. So I'll show you how to set that up. First of all, let's get rid of this. And we're going to go over to the mixer. You can see I have this track call. That's the one I'm talking on. And you can see I'm going through this aux track, which is called pre-comp. I'm already going through it, but I don't have anything on it. So when I said that I was going through dry, that's absolutely what I was doing. So we're going to turn these off for now. And you can hear I just got a little quieter. Now in Logic, setting up this routing is a little bit more complicated than in some other DAWs. So I'm going to show you how to do that really quick. If you are in Pro Tools or some other one, you can create an aux track just by creating a new track and all that stuff. But in Logic, it's not quite that simple. So we go to Create Track, and you can see there is no option to create an actual auxiliary track. So here's how you got to do it. You would create, and I've already done it here, but I'll do it again. You would create a audio track. We're just going to do that. So there's my new audio track. And then I'm going to change this. Okay, just so it's not recording. So I'm going to create this audio track, and then I'm going to go out in this. I'm going to create a bus. Well, we're going to call it bus 10. So when I sent out to the bus, it created this track over here. You can see this is aux 7 and it's bus 10. So it automatically created an aux track when I assigned a bus to this track. It's a little goofy. Now I can actually get rid of this. No send. And this isn't going to go away. But I didn't want to send anything to the bus. I actually wanted to send from the bus over to my new track. So now I'm going to put this right here as my input. Let's just say my input is input 6, even though it's input 5, but I'm already talking through it, so I don't want to mess that up. So input 6 into the aux track, and then instead of going to the stereo out, I'm going to go to bus 10, and it's going to create another one. Don't worry about that. And then I'm going to have this new track. I'm going to assign the input to bus 10. And now I have this right here going in 6, out bus 10, and then in bus 10, over to this audio track. That means that anything I put on this track is going to be written to this track. So let's go back to this section that I did here. If I engage this compressor and this EQ, you can hear it coming on. But because I have this routed, I'm coming in 5 right here. I'm going out bus 7, then in bus 7. You can think of the buses as just a cable connecting them together. And in bus 7 and then out stereo out. So if I take this over here, move this over here, test, 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 test. Now, the effects of the compression and EQ that I had added initially to the recorded track that were not added to the file are now they're now in sequence to be recorded into the file. So, the same thing goes here. If I turn these off, turn these on. So I also don't want quite the amount of compression. So I'm going to take this down a little bit. When you call, that's actually pretty good to go in. And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to turn the limiter on. And I want this to just sort of light up every once in a while when I get real loud. When you call, I can't help but run. That's good. A little bit of distortion isn't so bad. You don't want unpleasant distortion, but a little overdrive when you really dig into the mic isn't a big deal. The goal when you're dialing in compression and EQ that you're going to track with, that are going to be written to the file, is just to tame it. You're not finished shaping it. You're just going to tame it, and then you're going to finish shaping it later, and you're going to get a much more workable result. So we don't want to go too crazy. So if we go back here and we're going to bring this down, maybe even half a dB. Test, hey! And then our compression. When, I like that you can see the meter. So I have a ratio here of 2.5 to 1. And then I'm getting my threshold so that when you call, I'm hovering around -5 dB, which is a good place to put it, and unless I'm really going crazy. I can't help but run! And I'm getting the limiter in there, which is also fine. I just want to kiss that limiter when I'm at my very highest. And then I'm going to look at my makeup. This is the gain. I'm going to turn up the gain a little bit. When you call, and I want to be, can't help but run! I can't help but run! I want to be in the green to yellow area here on my meters. So good. I have my chain set up, and I have no plugins at all on my actual recording track. I have this pre-comp or this routing that helps me get my general sound to disk. So let's close this out. Let's go back and let's record it again, and you're going to see a big difference in the waveform. And then we're going to move on top of that. We're going to maybe add some additional EQ and compression. Let's see how it goes. When you call, I can't help but run. Wow, yeah, big difference. I don't have to have that on anymore. You can see that the limiter kicked in there, but everything's a lot more consistent. Let's listen back. When you call, I can't help but run. Listening again, soloed. When you call, I can't help but run. Okay, it's overloading a little bit. Run! I might turn my preamp down just a little bit. When you call, I'll turn that down quite a bit more, and then we'll juice it in the pre-plug-in state. When you call, so we'll go back here, and we're going to turn the gain up on the compressor because my input is less now. When you call, I can't help but run. I can't help but run. That feels better. I think I'm hearing can't help but run. I think I'm hearing less distortion. Let's try that again. We're going to record it again. We're just dialing in the effects. And once you get this for your voice or for whoever you're working with, you can save presets so that you don't have to go back to it over and over again. It's like you're creating a channel strip when you don't have a channel strip in your room. You're creating it in the software, which is kind of neat. Okay, so let's try this again. When you call, I can't help but run. There we go. Again, you can see a lot more consistency there, written to the file. Since you're going to want to do that stuff anyway, you might as well have it written to the file. When you call, I can't help but run. Listening? When you call, I can't help but run. Ooh, there's more distortion. Okay, so we need to take these down, dial it in a little. Bring this back. Can't help but run. I can't help but run. Yeah, we were kissing that limiter maybe a little too hard. When you call, I can't help but run. That's good. Let's see. Let's check our EQ. Make sure we're not. When you call, I can't help but run. That's good. Okay. Let's try again. Still, you have some consistency. When you call, I can't help but run. Listening? When you call, I can't help but run. Yeah, that's clean without it being, it's not distorted, it's clean, but it's also not super dynamic like you saw in the first one. Most of the time in this studio, I use a hardware compressor and preamp to do the pre-comp. And that's great because you have two different flavors acting on each other as opposed to the same plugins. And we could, in this case, we could take different plugins because they're going to hit things slightly differently. So let's do that. Rather than using the exact same plugins in both stages, we'll use slightly different plugins to give us a better sound. So I'm going to pull up, rather than using these plugins again, I'm going to pull up a Waves plugin, which is a neat, this is something that I like to use on vocals a lot. It's called the Sheps Omni Channel. And this thing's great because it allows you to compress and EQ, has a de-esser, has all sorts of fun stuff. And you can actually add some extra distortion or saturation, they call it. So let's dial this in. This is going to be a different flavor than the other ones. Even though I was able to tame the signal a little bit with those initial compressing and EQ effects, this is going to be a more flavored real-time effect that I'm going to be able to dial in. That's sounding good. When you call, I can't help but run. Too much. When you call, I can't help but run. Yeah, just let it kiss that limiter, just like it did the last limiter. Now we already rolled off the low end on that initial EQ, so we don't necessarily need to do that again here. We can just sweeten it with a little bit more highs. I boosted the highs more here to get a bit more presence out of it. I think that's all we need. When you call, I can't help but run. And I'm going to add a little bit of saturation. We're gonna do a filter too. Might as well. Starting at any rumble that might be left over from what the other EQ didn't catch. When you call, I can't help but run. When you call, I can't help but run. Listening? When you call, I can't help but run. That's got a really nice sound. And I have a nice visual, tame representation of what I sang because I compressed a little bit on the way in, and I EQ'd a little bit on the way in, and then I fine-tuned it on the way out with some real-time plugins, or with just one, the Schoeps Omnichannel. And I got to hit multiple effects less, as opposed to just using a ton of compression EQ on the way in or a ton of compression EQ on the way out. This ultimately gives me more flexibility and allows me to dial in a better vocal sound using a few different tools a lot, as opposed to one different tool. Using a few different tools a little bit as opposed to one tool a lot. When you call, I can't help but run. 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 So try that with your own vocal recordings. A little bit of compression and EQ on the way in using the aux track trick, and then fine-tune it with a different plugin on the way out after you have your file recorded, and it allows you to tweak a little bit more. Hope you enjoyed this. Leave some comments below. Be sure to subscribe if you like these videos. And again, if you want to take this further, be sure to join my free recording course by clicking the link below. See you soon.